You've obviously seen this emoji being used before. Seriously, you can never look at a comment thread without seeing this emoji splattered all over it. There's just some guy trying to give some facts, state some evidence, showing statistics, anything vaguely intellectual, and then some other dude just slaps the emoji like a sealed bleed. If you were the one who had been sealed, you'd know how awful it feels. A mixture of disapproval and at the same time, confusion. How did I just get made fun of for just being a bit factual? Exactly, let me show you. Wait. Before I begin, let me clarify something. The nerd emoji in itself is not inherently bad, although a few design choices make it a bit controversial. It isn't really the emoji per se, but it's the way people use it. And oh boy, do people use it in the dumbest ways possible. Nowadays, when we see the emoji being used, it's used against the most trivial messages, and barely anyone so far has noticed the actual problem with this. Sometimes not even the victims. To tell you the first problem that this emoji brings along, I need to pull up an example scenario. An argument arises in the comment section of my last video, fighting over who's right about their theories. It gets so heated that one person pulls up real statistics. The other person tries to stoop everything down and slaps a... Now, have you spotted the first problem with using this emoji? It's the fact that using it genuinely makes you look stupid. You get blasted by actual smarts and skills, and you use a lowly nerd emoji to come back at it? It's pretty clear who's smarter if you use it. Now, the main reason as to why this emoji is celebrated constantly in the internet community is not because of its savoring use of stupidifying arguments. If it were the case, it would be wiped out almost immediately. It's because of some other factor, but we'll get to that in a minute. For now, even when there's no argument, people still use it all the time. I'm pulling up a second example, but this time, it's real. In the same video, I made a comment clarifying the mistakes that I made in the video, explaining and correcting each blunder. It doesn't offend anybody. In fact, it made people appreciate the video even more. But... yeah, this one is arguably worse because the comment wasn't even provoking you, yet you choose to click and reply and paste the nerd emoji. If you have the insane urge to use the nerd emoji on a comment like this, it just tells everyone that you can't handle information and that you can't handle other people being smart, and that you're so incredibly sensitive that an informative comment can throw you off and drive you to insult them. Actually, you don't even have to say or mention anything informative, and the emoji will still occasionally be used against you. Aside from the things that it does to the one using it, it obviously negatively impacts the victim as well. I probably don't have to tell you that a lot of people would feel unacknowledged and misunderstood, and any more negative adjectives that I could find when facing the use of the emoji. Looking at the list of why the emoji is bad, it's honestly hard to understand right away why the use of it is still extremely common. If that's the only thing that the nerd emoji has going for it, then the current toxic way that people use it wouldn't even last on the internet for more than 3 minutes. There has to be something else that is making it as widespread and accepted as it is today. We gotta travel to the center of all this to see what it is. The reason why we still see it is because it's also being used against genuinely bad stuff, and everything else mentioned stems from there. In the center, we can see it being used against genuinely annoying people who bring the mood down, sometimes against actually really hateful stuff, sometimes against overly analytical skeptics that try to bring down a video just because of one mistake or misinterpretation. Like, you get it. When used correctly, the nerd emoji can be a fun and simple way to mock and destroy ideas that are just plain wrong, maybe even helping people to change their minds about having wrong beliefs. This sense of altruism is the true force that motivates the rest of the branch. The thing is, through some emotional chain reaction, people started using the nerd emoji in other places that don't deserve it. People started to use the emoji in worse and worse ways, which, along with the help of memes, really pushed the emoji usage from good to bad. This is not good. To really help you understand how people start using it badly, let's pull down an example. A kid finds the nerd emoji meme being used in the same altruistic way I mentioned earlier. He feels incredibly influenced, thinking that using the nerd emoji against bad will make him look cool and that everyone will become proud of him. However, he lets his emotions get the better of him. He accidentally engages himself into an internet fight. His opponent starts lunging at him with some smart sounding words and numbers. The kid then feels incredibly insecure, so he tries his absolute hardest to save his pride by looking at what's available. He notices a pattern in how his opponent just talked. He couldn't just take what he said in. His emotions were just too much, so he takes the nerd emoji and slams it onto the desk. You got the example, right? Great, it goes on from there. As more and more people go through the same experience as the kid, inevitably, memes will start popping up about it. they get shared all over the internet, which influence people into defending themselves in the same way, influencing their friends into doing the same thing, and influencing their friends' friends, which statistically could involve someone who makes memes, which influence even more people. Yeah, the nerd emoji is now what we know as a highly toxic comeback or response. At this point, all of you are dying to see how to actually stop someone from using the nerd emoji. Now, I'm gonna show you my plan on completely exterminating the misuse of the nerd emoji later, as, you know, perhaps you don't have enough time or resources. Perhaps you are currently in a heated argument and you need something quick to come back at them. Well, here it is. Step number 1, or actually the only step, is to keep your cool. Show them that you don't care and that you are unfazed by them. It might not be easy for some of you, but if you don't keep your cool, it defeats the purpose of you going against the nerd emoji. You should not give the nerd emojier the satisfaction of seeing you bouncing around, flustered, jumping, screaming, frustrated like a monkey in a cage. When they see that you didn't budge in any way whatsoever, they will soon eventually start to feel like whatever they're doing is secretly really stupid and not worth it, and that they're making a fool of themselves. That is literally all you need to defend yourself, but it's difficult, and you kinda need to intuitively understand the entire process before it works 100% of the time. Oftentimes, you might head to what other comebacks people have made against the nerd emoji. They're usually extremely inflexible, rage-filled, hyper-optimized comebacks, like, "Oh, that's the face your mom has," or "Guess what? You are the emoji," or something. A lot of these just don't work because it doesn't matter how big and strong the comeback insult is. It'll just make you look like an angry idiot in the nerd emojier's eyes. I actually thought pretty hard for a good comeback against the nerd emoji, but everything gravitated towards being calm and collected. You could take it and execute it in many different ways, like looming over them, or not acknowledging any of it, or literally just leaving the scene. Before we move on to the long-term point, it needs to be made clear that exterminating the emoji completely is a horrible idea. The goal is to partially stop people from using the emoji in extremely stupid and desperate ways. First, we need to precisely pinpoint the source. It's less efficient to pluck each blade of annoying grass than to stop the annoying plane showering the annoying seeds all over your non-annoying yard. So, looking at the example I made earlier, we can see that the reason that it spreads is because people spread it from person to person, or in some cases, from person to server. It's the same way memes get super viral. This method of spreading is super OP and super fast. I mean, just look at the super viral memes and how far they've spread, or better yet, just look at the nerd emoji and how far it has come. Now begs the question, how do we stop the nerd emoji from being misused? To achieve this, we really need to catch up with the nerd emoji's spread pace, which seems utterly impossible to do at first. But luckily, there is a clever tactic to policing the emoji. It is by doing what the nerd emoji meme does already, and turning the anti-misuse on nerd emojis, we obviously need a better name to this, into a better meme. Better memes will spread faster, but we need to find out how to make it as fun and influential to use. We can actually adapt the Giga Chat, which is extremely simple to understand and helps influence other people extremely well, but at the same time more misused than nerd emoji, but that's a story for another time. One of the main incentives for using the nerd emoji is that you get to mock whoever you are against, making you feel superior and a lot less weird. The incentive that the new anti-misuse on nerd emojis has is that using it and proving it makes you feel a lot smarter, makes you feel better about yourself, about how you can actually take in arguments without loss of pride, and makes you feel above people who use the nerd emoji. This would be extremely effective. Now, doing this takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. It also requires a lot of technical skills and intelligence and intuition about internet culture. However, with the teamwork of many internet users, it is very much possible to do. In the end, the nerd emoji is not the problem, it's the misuse that's the problem. So yeah, to some of the people who cared enough to watch all the way here, I have a Patreon.